This is the Graceful Atheist Podcast, a part of the Atheist United Studios Podcast Network. Welcome to the Graceful Atheist Podcast. My name is David, and I am trying to be the Graceful Atheist. Please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on the Apple Podcast Store, rate the podcast on Spotify, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening. If you're in the middle of doubt, deconstruction, the dark night of the soul, you do not have to do it alone. Join our private Facebook group, Deconversion Anonymous, and become a part of the community. You can find us at facebook.com/groups/deconversion. Remember, we have a merchandise store with Graceful Atheist and Secular Grace themed items. You'll find the link in the show notes. Special thanks to Mike T for editing today's show. On to today's show. Arlene interviews this week's guest, Mary Justice. Mary runs the Instagram account, Mary Berry Foferi, that is all about motherhood, her experience having a child with autism, and her own experience as an adoptee. Mary grew up in a very strict Seventh-day Adventist environment and was able to deconstruct. Here is Arlene interviewing Mary Justice.
Mary Justice, welcome to the Graceful Atheist Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I got back on Instagram a few years ago and I started following Scary Mommy because I'm a parent and I need Scary Mommy in my life. And the algorithm was like, you may also like Mary Fairy Bowberry. And I was like, okay. So I started following you. And not only have I learned like so much about autism, things I just did not know before, and about just being a mom, girl, I have laughed and felt so seen. So there is all that.
Well, that makes me happy.
Oh, yes. It's like your page is so much fun. And then a few months ago, you just posted, I can't remember the picture or the reel or anything. I just remember the caption was just something about just pulling apart the religious environment that you grew up in. And I was like, hold up, I want to know more about this. So I snuck into your DMs and I was so honored when you responded. So thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to hear your story. So yes, the way we usually begin is tell us about the religious environment that you grew up in.
Okay, well, let's jump in. I'm from Honduras originally.
Oh, okay.
So I was adopted, and my adoptive family, my mom is also from Honduras. She's like a relative, but not like really close or anything. But anyways, I was adopted and brought to the U.S. and we lived in Arkansas. And so I don't know if you've ever been to Arkansas, lived in Arkansas. It's pretty rural. Okay. And our family is Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh, wow. Okay. We have had multiple people who were SDA on the show.
I would imagine. Absolutely. And I guess it was almost a normal thing when you grow up Seventh-day Adventist. I want to say it's almost like you're immersed in it. You're surrounded by it. You almost don't even know people that aren't SDA because so there's actual towns that are Seventh-day Adventist.
Yes. I was in Bible study with two chicks who were Seventh-day Adventists, and one of them lived in a place in California that begins with an L.
Loma Linda.
Yep. I do. Yep. I remembered that. Yeah. And she told us all about it.
So there's a few. When we moved to Texas, it was to Keene, Texas.
Okay.
And that is a primarily Seventh-day Adventist town.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yes. And you, as an Adventist, you hear about all the other SDA towns. And like when you apply for college, hey, guess what? You're going to apply to a SDA college town. And guess where I ended up in college? I was in Collegedale, Tennessee, which is a Seventh-day Adventist college town. And
Imagine
it's actually, yeah. So, but starting in Arkansas, our family was very, I would say, the fundamentalist, they were going to follow it to the T, sundown to sundown. And for people that don't know what that means, it's Friday nights are, I used to just sort of call it holy night. Because, the minute the clock struck that, and they have times, so they actually have calendars that they send out to the church. And it says sundown to sundown. So you know what time sundown begins on Friday, what time it ends on Saturday. And between those hours of sundown to sundown, between Friday night and Saturday night, you have to observe the Sabbath. And by that, I mean you're not going to go to restaurants. You're not going to spend money. Your house better be clean.
Wow.
Yeah, it's something. So Friday night was like the day that we prepared, or Friday was the day that we prepared for the Sabbath to come in, and the house had to be clean, and we got our clothes ready and washed and things done, because Saturday pretty much couldn't do anything except go to church, come home, and you eat a meal prepared at your house, because you're not going to spend money, and you're going to take a nap.
Oh, I mean, I'm here for that. That sounds.
As an adult, the nap sounds great. As a child, the nap is torture.
Not so much. Yeah. So I'm curious, thinking about the kids. Could you read books instead of take a nap, or was it like you had to sleep? Or is this too nitpicky? Although it sounds kind of nitpicky. So
no, and I think that some people are to the form of extremists, where if you were gonna read something, it better be like religious material.
Okay, yeah,
things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't allowed to listen to what they called secular music.
Yeah.
So our station was always, we had two things we could listen to. It was either Christian music or classical music. That was it.
Oh, okay.
And that goes for a lot of Seventh-day Adventists. Like even the ones I know now, they don't listen to secular music.
One of the women in the Bible study, I remember her talking about the inherent superiority of pianos to drums, because drums were like inherently evil. And I was like, this has white supremacy all underneath this. This feels so gross to me, but I didn't know how to articulate that at the time.
I think saying it like that is perfect, honestly. Because, and it is. Yes, drums are not allowed. Absolutely not. You will never find a drum in a Seventh-day Adventist church. I do know that there's more modern Seventh-day Adventist churches popping up here and there. A lot of them. So I'm from Texas now. We moved when I was 10 to Texas. So they're called cowboy churches here.
Okay.
Yeah. And everyone wears boots and hats, and the deacons and pastors, and they'll even have the Texas flag shirts on, and they'll take up the offering in cowboy hats. So they might be open to a drum or two, but honestly, I haven't been to a Seventh-day Adventist church in so many years, I couldn't tell you.
Oh my heavens.
But there's just, I feel like it's centered around a lot of shaming for girls, especially. And one thing that was interesting to me growing up is, they were completely against Sunday being a day of worship, but they adapted to a lot of the Southern Baptist ideologies.
Okay.
So I'm sure you've heard of Dr. James Dobson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I have.
So he was revered in our household.
Oh, that's fascinating, because let's see, we were Calvinists, so he wasn't off the table because we listened to Christian radio, but he was, I don't know, little bit culty. We wouldn't have said it that way at the time. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
I mean, I'll say it now. It's fine. So growing up, my parents just, oh my gosh, every book, every tape he had was in our house. They read it, listened to it, worshipped it, basically. They were very much into the whatever he said goes
Mm-hmm.
thing, except for, of course, the Sunday ideas. And in one of his things that he came up with is something called True Love Waits,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
right? So I was had to follow that. I had to sign my little promissory note promising my future unknown husband that I would
Oh my
be a
heavens.
virgin, and I had to slip a ring on my finger that said True Love Waits.
Oh, Mary. Oh gosh. I did not grow up in the church, so I knew about it when we started going to church in high school, but like I was already I guess chewed up bubble gum and this, all the whatever metaphors they used to shame girls. I was already
Right.
that. So there was no ring on my finger. My dad, we never got into that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Ugh.
And I feel like it's taken me almost this long to see just how awful that is.
Yeah.
Like it's a mess. But so the SDA has a lot of rules in place, especially for women. So dancing is not allowed ever.
Ah, okay.
Um, so I went to all private school up until my senior year. So I've only been to 1 year of public school in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no such thing as dances or proms. You'll have a banquet. You'll
Okay.
get dressed, and your shoulders must be covered at all times.
Those shoulders will tempt some men, won't
Tempt those
they?
boys.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So you had to have shawls. So we all had to go buy these hideous shawls that you would see on, like an 80-year-old woman probably, and wear with our dresses. And then we went, and it was a dinner, and usually something just like really cringy. Like we actually had magicians that would come in.
Oh,
And
heavens.
that was the act for the evening. And then when that was done, you finished eating, and that was it. You took some pictures and you left. And that was the big thing. So,
Gosh.
yeah. Um, and you're just sort of expected to follow along, with all these rules, these guidelines. Your dresses aren't going to be too short. Your shorts aren't going to be too short. You're never going to show your stomach. You're not going to show your shoulders. For the good Christian Adventist women, of course, they're never going to have any sort of jewelry on. They don't believe in jewelry. They don't believe in makeup. They don't dye their hair. They don't drink coffee, tea, or anything with caffeine.
Wow. So like it feels infantilizing. It's like you're a child, not you
Yes.
literally. I mean like the people in the
Yes,
church are children and here are all the rules you have to follow. Like it's micromanaging a bunch of kids. That sounds insulting.
it is. And so a lot of it they push off as like a health thing. Oh, this is
Ah,
for your health. So you can't participate in caffeine of any sort because it's a stimulant. And of course, any alcohol is absolute no no, cigarettes, no no, anything like that.
yeah.
But also it's, the true love waits thing comes into play there too. Like you're going to be this good virginal girl that's waiting on this invisible man, and so I guess you're just waiting until you get married. That's what you have to look forward to, I guess. And so I don't want to say rebelled against it, but I like demanded answers.
Really? And this was in high school or is this afterwards?
This is before high school, so
Oh
I
wow.
don't know. Like my brother, I have a brother that he's not adopted, so he was their biological son, but he's 5 days older than me, so we grew up like twins.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then I have an older brother who's 21 years older than me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he had his own family and stuff already. And he left the church long time ago. But so my brother that's my age just, and it used to just drive me crazy because everything they said, he just blindly followed along. And I used to call him the spy because like his mission in life was to get me in trouble
Ah,
for not following along blindly. So if we were at school and I stepped out of line, guess what? My parents found out.
your parents would know, yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, the teachers were the exact same way. So when and I did share this on my Instagram a few times. When I got my first kiss, I was in seventh grade. and we thought we were being really discreet. It was just a quick kiss on the lips. And, that's like a huge milestone for every kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's your first kiss. One of these teachers at the Adventist elementary school I was at called my mom.
Oh my goodness.
And told my mom, and I was grounded for a year.
Holy cow, a year?
A year, yes.
Wow. That's
Yep. So
excessive.
I got, called whore and everything else.
Oh,
So
Mary. I'm so sorry. May I ask, is like family or church people or or school?
Oh, my mom.
Oh, Mary. Oh.
That was my mom. Yeah. Her family's been Adventist all the way back. Like her great whatever grandfather started an Adventist church, in the island that she's from. So like, this goes back forever. And she brought all the ideals that were forced on her. And it's like, she never wanted to step outside that. She never wanted to question that. There was just, and then I felt like, I guess saying just crazy is just a way to describe it simply as a child. But that's the way I was like, this is just crazy. This is madness, like, and, but one thing, she seemed to sort of pick and choose sometimes because she's a very vain person. And there were a few things that she was okay with for her. Like, so makeup's always been fine for her. But if like other people wore a lot of it, she had a lot to say.
So it's
and
like,
then so it's like the cherry picking,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and then she did get her ears pierced at some point in her life, and every now and then she would wear earrings, very seldomly, and she did wear a wedding ring.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that's really discouraged, and I think it goes across the board in most churches, which I really strongly disagree with, is divorce.
Oh, yeah.
They strongly discourage it, almost forbid it in some cases, I feel like. But my mom, her last husband just died, and that was her fourth marriage.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like in a lot of instances, yeah, she did pick and choose what fit her best, but there was judgment for those around her, So I feel like there's a lot of that in religion itself.
Yeah, the things that we're interested in or we want to do for whatever reason, somehow or another, there's a way to make it work in our benefit, in our way. I remember when I was young, and like I said, we started going to church in high school, but I wasn't like, when I used to tell my little testimony, I didn't become a Christian until I went to college. High school was we just went to church. I didn't care about it. But I remember thinking, all these people here who seem prideful and mean at the church we were at, always like harping on queer people.
Yes.
Because they're, married and they have all their stuff. And I remember just as a teenager being like, you guys are picking and choosing. Now I didn't have the language for it or anything, but yeah, it's easy. And I remember when Rachel Held Evans tried to do the whole like year of biblical womanhood, where she literally tried to follow everything it tells women to do in the Bible. Like,
oh Lord.
Yes. Like, it's just this insane
Did she
amount
get stoned too?
Random stuff. Oh, I didn't read the book because at the time she was kind of off limits in our little part of Christianity. But I feel like she did like sit on the edge of her house, like when she was having a fight with her husband or something. I don't know. I might be like spreading rumors about her great self, so I shouldn't say that. But yeah, she tried to do it all. Like, anyway, I apologize. You keep going. Keep telling your story.
No, I feel like I want to dive into that too and just look it up, because I tend to like go down these rabbit holes in my search for answers now.
No, I totally get it. I have not been any kind of believer in anything for a few years, but I still have a high respect for what little bit I knew about Rachel Held Evans. Right. I like read one book of hers right before I realized I didn't believe anymore. And I still have a high respect for her work.
I will definitely go down that rabbit hole later if I can remember her name.
No worries. I'll send it to you. Anyway,
Okay, good.
yes. Continue. So you were either still in high school or had gone to college? I'm not sure where you were.
I was probably still in high school at this point. So another rule in our house and many other Adventist households is you don't go to movies.
Oh, okay.
And movies weren't just like, it wasn't just like bad. Oh, you don't do that because it's bad. It was, oh, this is a place of the ultimate debauchery.
Ooh,
I mean,
sweet.
it was like, and my mom and my dad, well, it was mainly my mom, honestly, scared the living hell out of us growing up. So the Piggly Wiggly, and this is the post I shared, the Piggly
Yes.
Wiggly
Ooh,
in
I remember
Arkansas.
this.
Yeah, it was located right next to the movie theater in Arkansas. So to get out of the car and go through the parking lot, you're going to pass by the theater because the doors were like right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom had told us growing up that your guardian angels will leave you if you ever enter a movie theater.
Oh my goodness.
So my brother and I were terrified. And so we would get out of our station wagon, because you know that was like the car of the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
And we would just run and hold our breath because it was like we didn't even want to breathe the air that was surrounding the theater for fear that, oh, I don't know what would happen. Honestly, I don't think we knew, but we knew that God would abandon us.
Oh my gosh.
And
That
so
is scary.
as a little kid, that's like
Yeah.
terrifying. Like
Yes.
I remember that just being completely crazy. And Halloween, that was the other evil of the world. There was not even a mention of that. And I don't know if some people call it a holiday or whatever. I call it a holiday. It's my favorite holiday.
It's so much fun. Yes,
I
it's
love
so
it
much
now.
fun.
But you didn't mention that in our house. That absolutely not. I used to go to piano lessons, and so the piano books would come with just these, pre-made little pages that you would play, and they would all have like different things, and sometimes they would have seasonal ones, and every now and then there'd be a Halloween page. My mom would lose her mind. She'd rip it out, or she'd take a Sharpie and scratch the words of Halloween out, and then write in these big, obnoxious, embarrassing letters to my piano teacher that we do not celebrate these kind of pagan, horrible things for the devil, and it was devil worship. And I would just be like, oh my God, can I just play the piano now? Like,
Yes.
it's just so much fanaticism. Just,
Good word. Yeah.
it's nonsense, honestly. So, it's stuff like that. And it's crazy too, because like, I don't want to delve too much into like the childhood surrounding, because that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but it was just so dysfunctional at the same time. And then, you go to church and you act perfect, and your dad is a deacon, and your mom plays the piano in the church, and that's the way our life was. We were there every Saturday. And, everyone looking in, oh, this is the perfect little Seventh-day Adventist family. And, then you come home and your mom is evil, and she's mean and hateful, and makes your life hell.
Yeah.
But I survived, and it's crazy because I still have my faith. I am a Christian. I absolutely believe. I do not push my beliefs on anyone because I don't like people doing that to me.
Yeah.
And I do respect other faiths, and people that don't believe. That's fine too. But I'm not of any religion. I feel like I've tried all the religions. I've literally went like church hopping through my adulthood, just going from like church to church, just trying to find, and not so much even just church, but more like people, or just a connection with anyone, or fellowship, or something to make me feel like included, or after just this life of hell. And I've never forced my kids to go. We don't go, really. They'll go with their friends if they want to go sometimes. But we were going to a Baptist church for a little while that was just near the house, so it was kind of convenient. And I was like, "Oh, let's try this out." And this was my last my last attempt at religion, really. Um, and we were there for, I would say, about 6 months or more. We didn't go like every Sunday or anything like that, but then come to find out, they start preaching one day and they're preaching politics, which I'm absolutely against. Why are you preaching politics up here? And then also, they said that they did not allow divorced people to participate in activities with church, like to help do anything. Like,
Oh, wow.
and so to me, that just floored me. And that just took me right back to the whole let's cherry pick everything. And I'm sorry, if you're excluding people, no, you've already lost me.
No, I totally get it. I want to go back a little bit. So how were your 20s, and I don't know about 30s because you said 80s and 90s, but I don't want to assume any age. But
Oh no, I'm
like,
37.
yeah, okay, yeah, okay, we're about the same age.
I'm sorry, I do jump around.
Oh, it's totally fine. So was it? I mean, were you still Seventh Day Adventist? Were you still some version of Christianity? How was it working?
So I guess I considered myself still SDA probably up until I was like 18, when I just got completely like, okay, this is craziness. And took that little James Dobson ring off my finger. And I think my mom still has it. So when she found out that I had a serious boyfriend, she just like lost her mind. And I was like almost 19 years old at this point, you
Yeah.
know? And she like unexpectedly like said we were going somewhere, right? And to pack something. And this is like the night before. And I was like, what? She takes me out to this like cabin in the middle of nowhere to grill me about my sex life.
Oh my heavens!
Yeah, it was horrible. And there was no, like, literally no escape. I was in the middle of nowhere.
Oh wow! I'm so
And
sorry.
I just, it was like, it was not just like humiliating, but it was almost like traumatizing. Like, I feel like I'm an adult now. Like, I'm being responsible. I really don't owe you any details about my life.
No, not at all.
It was just mind blowing. So yeah, that ring, I don't know where that ring is. I don't care where that ring is. So, and because of that sort of, I was going to graduated from high school at that point. I was already out of high school, and I was at a community college that I myself was paying for. At that time, because I was, I think, almost 19. And unbeknownst to me, my mom, to get me away from that guy, signed me up online and got me accepted to Southern Adventist University in Collegedale, Tennessee.
Oh wow, that's
Yes. And once again, she and my brother pretty much decided what I was going to do with my life again. And they packed my stuff up one night, and literally, I mean, I had like 1 or maybe 2 days to prepare for this. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. And then it was like, yes, you are. And I was still living at home. I was paying my bills and things and, paying for my college, but I was still living at the house. So she was like, no, you're going. And it was like, where else was I going to go at that point?
Yeah. Wow.
So my brother drove me down there, and left me, and that was the weekend before Christmas.
Oh.
And so I was there alone, like just like sobbing in this cinder block room. I felt like I was in prison because it literally looked like prison. In this state I'd never been to. I didn't know anyone. And I only went there for, I think it was 2 semesters total, so just like a year, and fled from that
Good.
place.
Good. Yeah.
It was horrible. Honestly, I can't even remember if I did the second semester. I may have left during the second semester and got my own apartment, but the first semester was hell. They do treat you like a child, going back to what you had said earlier, that whole childlike thing. So you are an adult, you are paying for your college, and it is not cheap. um, and you have a curfew at the college, and you are not allowed to wear jewelry at the college. And they have these people that they don't name, so you'll never know who they are. But they work with the college, and they're probably peers of yours there that you might think are your friends, that go tell the dean who's wearing jewelry,
Wow.
where they were spotted wearing jewelry, and you get fined.
Because naturally, money. I mean, why not?
Yes,
You know?
yes, exactly.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it didn't even stop there. So there's something called Vespers, and if you're Adventist, you absolutely know what Vespers are. It's like this Friday night worship service, and you have to go. And they have one on Wednesday night too. But honestly, I don't think I ever made that one. So you had to go to so many a month, like you have a quota.
Wow.
If you don't meet that, I know there's fines included in there, but I don't know if they can expel you for it. I can't really remember, but I do know that there is fines for that. And the same goes for church. So church is non-negotiable. You're going to church.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Wow.
You are going to church on Saturday morning. You will be, and they will come in your room. They check your room. They check your bathroom. And if you're not going, you're going to get a fine. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to have to talk to the dean eventually, whatever. So one of the girls I was talking to that wasn't like, going along with this like me, she was like, listen, this is what I do. I hide in my closet. So it's like these cabinets, like the Narnia type cabinet,
Nice. Uh-huh.
Right. And so like all your clothes kind of like hang down. And if you got behind them and just pulled them down in front of you, you could even leave the closet doors open, even for better effect. And that's what I would do, because I would be like right there behind those clothes, and they would check me off as gone to church like every Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah,
you're an adult. You do not need to. You should not have to hide in your closet, your Narnia closet, so that grown people can count you as having gone to church. Oh my goodness!
Exactly. It was madness, and I tried every which way around it. Tried sneaking out. I climbed up on the roof one night in a drunken stupor, trying to get out because they locked down the campus. And I was up on top of this dorm that's like, stories and stories high. And I'm like, me and another friend of mine were up there like crawling around, and there was like people outside like surveying the campus looking for anyone. And we were trying to like not get caught. It was crazy. And I'm glad we didn't fall off the roof.
Yes, that could have gone really badly.
Yeah. So that was interesting times there for sure. I got many fines, and then I thought it would be humorous almost. A friend of mine worked at Hooters.
Ooh, that's fun.
And so I immediately went and applied and got a job there. And it was fun, and it was funny too, because I had to report where I was to the dean, because you can't come in after a certain time. And the managers I had, because I worked at Applebee's and I worked at Hooters in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they would have to write me these big long notes whenever I would be late for curfew, explaining why I was late because I was at work.
Oh my goodness.
And they were just like, do you not see that this is crazy? And I'm like, oh no, I do. Trust me. And then the dean would tell me I was lying all the time, and I was making up these notes, and I'd have to go back to my bosses. And I finally got enough of that and moved off campus and got my own apartment and never looked back. Never went back to that school.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So that's how that went. The rest of my college time was just, public colleges, and I got a nursing degree. which is also a funny small story. Um, my dad made this list for me when I was like, God, I must have been 8, maybe 9, maybe not even that old, saying what I could be when I grew up. And I remember there being 3 things on that list. I don't think there was a 4th thing. 1 was a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
2 was a teacher, and 3 was a minister's wife.
Wow.
So that's so telling right there. Just like, okay.
Wow.
But unfortunately, I picked from that list.
Now, did you become a nurse because you wanted to become a nurse, or was it like that's all you felt you could do, or?
I think it was a lot of both of those things.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it was something I was interested in. I've always been pretty empathetic towards people. And yes, I do like helping people, but it was also like, oh, this is on the list. Like maybe this will get some form of approval from my parents for the first time in my life.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And there were a few times I remember mentioning other career paths, and that was just like, not just discouraged, but like, just, there was a lot of verbal abuse in that household. So,
So at 18, you're like, I don't know that I want to be SDA anymore, at least. And then, but you went to the college because you were forced. Your 20s have gone on. After college, what happened next?
well, I came home. I was actually planning to stay another year in Collegedale. Well, I was living in Chattanooga near Collegedale in my own apartment, paying my own way with everything, and going to the community college in Chattanooga. And once again, my mom and my brother, I guess, sat down and had a powwow about my life together. And they called me one night. I was 20. And I remember I had a shift at work the next day. Mm-hmm. And my mom said, your brother bought a plane ticket and you need to go pick him up in the morning and he's driving you home tomorrow.
Wow.
There was no discussion. There was no, hey, guess what? I have an apartment here. Hey, guess what? I'm going to college here. I literally have a job to go to tomorrow. That was not a factor in my life. I felt like I had no say in my own life at 20 years old, living in another state. I was in Tennessee. My parents, or my dad passed away in 2004, but my mom and my brother, made all my decisions from freaking Texas, and I'm 20 years old. So once again, I feel like I still had no choice. I had no voice in the matter, which is just madness to me. And I would never allow that to happen today. But I started packing my stuff that night. It was insane. And I had to call my bosses because I think I was still working I know I was working at Hooters, but I think I was picking up Applebee's still. And I had to tell them, like, I'm not going to be back ever. Sorry. And I don't know, just I had to leave, and luckily I had enough money to leave with the apartment complex to pay out for my lease that I had saved up, because you can't just abandon an apartment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a lease.
Yeah.
But, I feel like with my mom and my brother, it's always been, they're going to do what they want to do, and I just don't have a say. I better just go along for the ride. So I ended up back in Texas on a whim at 20. And a few months later, I got pregnant.
All right.
And my life was already flipped upside down. And then it just, I felt like it took a nosedive at that point, because telling your mom, who's already the way she is, that you're pregnant and unmarried at 20, 2 or 3 months after coming home from Tennessee, where she sent you in the first place, that was not fun. That was probably the darkest time in my entire life. including my childhood.
Mm.
And I'll never forget. And I was thinking about this the other day when we talked about having this conversation. My mom dragged me, and I mean like forced me to go to this counselor at the Adventist church. And this was one of those cowboy churches I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never met this person, but I guess she was a friend of my mom, and I think she's a licensed counselor. And she works for the church. Maybe she has an office somewhere else too, but she counsels inside the church. Well, anyways, my mom made me go in there because my mom said that I had ruined her life and brought shame on our entire family, and
Wow.
all the fun things. And I remember being in there, and I was like scared to death. Like, I never wanted kids. It just wasn't a plan that I had for my life.
Yeah.
So I was planning to apply to like a overseas college program and go to London.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what I was going to be doing. And ended up pregnant. Well, I told my mom, who demanded, like, what are you going to do? And I told her, well, I'm going to keep it. This is my kid. Like, I'm going to figure this out myself. Like, nobody asked you for anything. I've been paying my own way for years. Well, she was pissed. And I remember her taking me to that counselor and crying, just like bawling her eyes out. And I was sitting there, and I remember just being like so enraged. Like, I refused to cry. Like, I wanted to cry, and I was so mad. And I was hurt, and I was scared to death anyway. And it wasn't like I could just be like, I am scared to death. Like, what am I going to do? Because I had no one to say that to. My mom tells this woman that she's literally praying to God for me to drop dead.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And this counselor, and I'll never forget, she just sits there and like nods, like with my mom, like, yes, I could understand why you would pray to the Lord for your daughter to die. And my mom was telling her that she was praying to just be able to plan my funeral so that she could bury me and get on with her life.
Oh God. Mary, I'm so sorry.
So, and I feel like that was like one of the, I don't know, like, I don't want to say biggest moments in my life, but more like just such a defining moment in my life to where I realized, like, this person is no longer going to have any sort of hold on me. This church is no longer going to have any form of connection with me in my life or my kid's life. And I feel like, and I've never forgotten that, obviously, but not once did they ask me how I was feeling. Not once did they ask me anything about me or the baby or, nothing. My mom ordered me out of the house. Had to move in with the guy that, we'd barely been seeing or talking to each other for like, 2-3 months? And we ended up having to just like dive in and become adults like overnight and deal with this. And oh my gosh. But I would love to have a conversation with that counselor today.
Oh, yes.
And I've really thought about that. And that's the thing I want to go back to. Like, when we started talking about this conversation, and I was thinking about, like, the moments in my life that like really just not just pointed me away from religion itself, this organized thing of hatred that people have just created. That's probably one of just my most defining moments for that. And I would love to be able to tell that lady that, like, shake her hand, like, you really opened my eyes this day. But also just like, how could you call yourself a counselor? How could you do that? The damage that you've done, not just to me, but I know there's been countless others like me that have come in there actually needing someone to talk to. And God forbid they actually went out and did something to themselves because of the hatred you spewed their way. And I feel like that goes against everything that the God I worship says. and teaches. And, and when it comes down to it, the Bible says, God is love. And that's just the end of that story for me, like, period, end of sentence. You don't get to exclude somebody because you want to. You don't get to just shame or judge or you just don't get to do that because it just doesn't work that way. But yeah, I would love to either write her a letter or find her and have a conversation about that one day, hopefully.
Yeah, the internet does wonders. I'm sure you could find her.
It does.
Where are you now? You're still a Christian, but you're not religious. You're not doing the go to church stuff, but you still love Jesus.
I do. I still have faith. I feel like there is something bigger than me that cares for me and others and is probably absolutely horrified at the way we treat each other. And that's one thing, like, I feel like it's actually, like, really easy for me to tell, like, when I'm meeting someone or talking to someone and, they tell me, oh, whatever, and they start getting, racist or whatever, and I just immediately know, like, okay.
Yeah.
It's just not for me.
No, I get it. My husband realized he couldn't believe. That's one thing that different ones on the podcast have talked about. It wasn't that I suddenly thought, you know what, I don't want to believe anymore. It's just all of a sudden, I don't think I believe this. Like, it
Right.
goes against, everything in me. In 2017, my husband realized he couldn't believe in the God of the Bible. He's like, it's just, there's too much thinking God is good and loving and just and seeing how the world is. He's like, it's not mixing up quite right for him. And then by 2019, I was like, actually, I don't know that I believe any of this. And mine was for my mental health. I didn't realize how much the stuff I believed was causing a lot of my mental health problems. But it took us a long time to figure out, like, well, what do we believe? Do we have to believe anything? Is it, where do we find community? You mentioned that, just trying to find a sense of belonging. Like, so where do you find that now, not being part of, like, churches? Where do you find belonging and community?
And I know to some people this is going to sound like insane, and I'll probably get some eye rolls, but honestly, I found that online.
Oh, girl, we do not eye roll because most of us, our closest friends that we talk to often are people that we've never met in real life yet. Anyway, go ahead. I'm
Exactly.
sorry. Yeah,
Exactly.
You're good. You're in good space.
On a whim, I was in this, like, horrible depression, and I just kind of, like, had to try to snap myself out of it. My son had gotten diagnosed with autism at that time, and I didn't know anything about autism, and it was just, like, a lot to deal with on top of the family issues that I already have. And I just was like, okay, didn't know one thing about Instagram, nothing, zero, and I absolutely can't stand Facebook. So I was like, I'm just gonna check this out and see what this is, and I'm just gonna create a Twitter is where I started. And I sort of was, like, trying to figure Instagram out, but didn't have a clue. So, and I don't know, I feel like I've taken a lot of, like, my dark moments and sort of turned those into, like, this humorous nonsense. But it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of always helped me cope with things, just laughing about things. And I try to laugh off a lot of and I've even told stories to my friends, and they're almost, like, horrified by it. And I'm just, like, laughing because it's, like, it's almost unbelievable.
Yes. And I've heard people say, like, if I don't laugh, I will just cry. So
And never stop crying.
And never stop crying. Yeah.
So, and slowly but surely, like, these other people just connected with me, and they were funny, and they had their own stories, and they had, horrible things that happened to them, and we're all just clicking, and there's no hateful, I mean, there's always hateful people on the internet, but
Oh, yeah.
Once you find your people, they're great, and you can find your people. That's the thing. Like, they're out there.
They are out there. They may not be geographically close to you, but they're out there, and you can you can find them. Yes.
Yes. And I feel like that's brought me not just community, but, like, comfort and support and acceptance. And I've learned so much about, kids with disabilities, people with disabilities, the queer community. I feel like I've really been able to understand how to be a better ally there. Things like that. And I think that's great. And right now I'm kind of trying to get to know like my real like roots, like where I'm from, my family and things like that. So that's kind of what I've been diving into lately.
Oh, that's wonderful. I was raised by my dad, and like I said, I didn't grow up in church world, but my real mom left when I was little, and she had two other daughters with other men, and they were put into foster care. And I was an adult when I first met one of my sisters. My other sister
Oh,
had
wow.
passed away when she was little, but yeah, one of my sisters just found some old paperwork and found our real mom. I had always known our real mom. We didn't like I wasn't in foster care or anything. I just lived
Oh,
with my
okay.
dad, but I lived with my dad. He took custody, but and so I still knew our real mom. But then, yeah, I don't know what year, 2006, I think. She found some paperwork, my sister, and then we reconnected. And it can be a
That's
strange
great.
experience, but it's cool. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's amazing.
That's really cool.
Family can be really traumatizing and also like can be good. Yeah. Tell us more about Mary Fairy Bowberry and like just what you're doing there, because I love your tweets that you just stick on Instagram and they're just great. Anyway, but go ahead.
It's more like a mom humor,
Yes.
millennial
I feel
cringy
so
mom
seen.
account.
Yes, I feel so seen.
And my kids think I'm so uncool, but I don't care. um, it's to kind of laugh off, just the adulthood sucks. And so,
Yes.
yeah, it just helps to laugh. And then also, I do post a lot of things about autism, raising a child with nonverbal autism. And all the things that go along with that, which, therapies and, other things like little milestones. And, there's no such thing as really a little milestone to a parent of a medical child or a disabled child. Everything is just massive, So, and I've met other parents like that. And so just seeing their little wins along the way and, learning about their kids and, oh, hey, like learning, I've found out so much cool things. And then getting to connect with those parents, and I even met up with a few moms that came to the area. That was really cool, and I would like to hopefully make a few mom friends in the area to hang out with every now and then. That would be kind of nice.
Yes, I feel yeah. Leaving church for us, which our stuff kind of coincided with COVID. Like my husband was still going to church with us while I was still trying to figure out what I believed. And then like the end of 2019, I was like, I don't think I believe anymore. And then 2020, we had still gone, but then just everything stopped. And so it was like, everything stopped. And so you lose a lot of community if you don't go back to church after that. And we were not going back. And it was interesting because some people could handle my husband not being a Christian and us still coming to church. But when neither one of us believed, it was like, oh, okay, that's I can't. Y'all got demons or something. Like,
that's ridiculous too.
Yeah. So yeah, you just finding in real life friends is so hard as a grown up. I just want a shirt that says, I'll talk to you. I can have conversation like when we're at the playground or whatever. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so any recommendations you have? Podcasts you love, Instagram people, YouTube, books, anything that either is deconstruction related or just something you're loving right now?
Well, I've found, the podcast that you're doing to be really informative. I was listening the other night to another girl that had recently done an SDA program, and I can't remember her name. But I was listening because it just really fascinates me, and it's sort of comforting to just like hear like, oh, all these other people went through this stuff. And then, and even on TikTok, you'll find I was going down the James Dobson rabbit hole the other night and just finding all these other people, and they were sharing their stories, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so seen right now.
Yes. Well, the Graceful Atheists, I found them in 2020 and just started listening. And yes, just hearing other people tell their stories, it's like, oh my gosh, I can relate to that. Yes, I thought that same thing. I wondered that same thing. And seeing how people have landed in different places and there's no like right way to do any of this. Like, yeah, it's comforting. I felt seen. And then in 2021, I actually was on the podcast just tell my story. And then
Oh,
things have evolved from there. But yeah, just hearing other people's stories. Oh, it's so good. It's good.
it is. It's nice.
Yes, it feels validating. Just like
It
I was
is.
saying about the stuff you post, like it's just validating. It's like I'm not the only mom who has said this bizarre thing to my child that like why did I have to say these words out loud? Yes. So yeah. Okay. Well, Mary, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was wonderful. I really appreciated you being here.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
My final thoughts on the episode. I'm not going to fangirl. I did a little bit in the episode, but don't judge me. I love doing this episode. Like I really enjoyed getting to hear Mary's story. I did not grow up in the church, so it continues to blow my mind the bizarre things that religious people teach their children and believe themselves. And I know I believed a lot of them, but just all the rules. It just feels like micromanaging. And I know for myself, the idea of it brings so much anxiety. I can't imagine. Well, I guess I have experienced what it's like to live under that. But from the time you're a child, just the constant nitpick of everything that you do or say or think or wear or want to read or want to watch or how to spend your time. I mean, just rules and rules and rules. It's just so much. Thinking about how Mary has found community online, it makes my heart so happy because the internet is huge. And like she said, like you'll find your people. They may not be close around you. And in real life friends, y'all, is so important if we can have that. But if we can't find that, if we can't find that community online, it's such an almost like endless resource. So yeah, find community, find other people to be around you, to find comfort and friendship and just all the things that people feel like they have to be in church to find. Hopefully, this younger generation, the rise of the nuns, fewer and fewer people are being part of organized religion. Fewer and fewer people are believing in anything, but they still need other people around them. They still need that human connection and community. I'm so glad that Mary's been able to find it. I'm so glad that there is a resource like the internet, like Instagram and Twitter. Yes, I love it so much. This was a great interview. Thank you so much, Mary, for telling your story.
The secular grace thought of the week is chosen family. It seems like we've had several guests recently who have experienced a lot of loss and pain from family members who didn't act like family, particularly parents who did not act like parents. And on this side of deconstruction, deconversion, our relationships with family members can be very, very difficult. And it's just a reminder that you get to choose the people that you spend time with. You get to choose the people who you pour your love and time into. You get to choose who you call family. Next week, I interview Tracy. Tracy comes from a Catholic background. She's also a psychiatrist working with trauma victims. That's going to be a great conversation. You won't want to miss that. Until then, my name is David, and I am trying to be the graceful atheist. Join me and be graceful human beings. The beat is called Waves by Mackay Beats. If you want to get in touch with me to be a guest on the show, email me at gracefulatheist@gmail.com. For blog posts, quotes, recommendations, and full episode transcripts, head over to gracefulatheist.com. This is the Graceful Atheist Podcast, a part of the Atheist United Studios podcast.